Basu Godin Notebook. 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 Basu Godin Notebook.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the BasuandGodin Notebook. So, even though everybody's going to listen to this episode on Friday, so at some point during the day, we're recording this live on Thursday night at Hurley's Pub, right after the Canadians lost 3-1 to the Detroit Red Wings. Yeah, well, you win some, you lose some.
That was a big one.
Yeah, tough loss because the Canadians, I felt especially in the first half of the game, dictated the pace of that game, had the most chances. It was a pretty tight checking game, though. A lot of dump and chase, but they seemed to have kind of the upper hand, and slowly but surely started to tilt the other way around, and the Wings got some momentum.
Well, I mean, yeah, I am much louder. Anyhow, I'll try and hold my microphone a little further, but we got a glimpse of Martin St. Louis very, very angry at his bench after that tying goal. I would imagine that comes from the fact that they had three forwards deep in the offensive zone, and it didn't directly result in the goal, but the whole situation came as a result of that. I'm sure it was a priority in the second intermission. Do not be three forwards deep in the offensive zone. We're leading this game 1-0. It's a tight game. The most patient team will win. And they did not show the required patience to get this game to the finish line. So I'm sure that's going to be a point of contention, whether Marty says it publicly or not. We'll see. But
well, you could tell on the face of Alex Newhook that he knew something was wrong.
Yeah, and that line didn't play a whole lot at the end of the game. They had very sporadic shifts. They haven't had a great game in a little while. And honestly, I thought going into the game, I thought that was a line that could use a bit of a refresh of some sort. The bright side of this game, again, like Alex Texier continues to be an impact player ever since he re-entered the lineup, and you wonder, is that a spot for him? We talked about it on the podcast. Can he go back with Suzuki and Caulfield, maybe put Slavkovsky back with those guys on the second line? Mm-hmm. That second line needs a bit of a refresh, but that's not going to be – I'm not blaming this loss on that. That's just a general thought I had. But these are back-to-back games against division rivals in a playoff race. They entered the third period last game against Boston, 2-2 tie. They had to manage that game, did a pretty good job of it, stayed patient, wound up winning it in overtime. And then tonight they have a lead going into the third period. And I think that tying goal is going to bug Marty much more than the winning goal, because the winning goal is just a rough bounce, and that happens sometimes, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But I think the tying goal was Marty's going to look at that tying goal and be like, that was preventable.
Well, you have on that second line, you have two rookies, and it's a time of the year where it's tight checking hockey. There's less space. There's not as much rush offense as you might see earlier in the season. So maybe that there's an adjustment for guys like Kapanen and Demidov. I think that Demidov individually, when you think back of the games against San Jose and Anaheim, individually, he played very well. It's more like his line that as a whole seems to be struggling to find consistency. You look at Newhook, the game 2 nights ago against Boston, he played less than 10 minutes, played 9 minutes 14.
I think that's his career low as a Canadian.
So that's pretty crazy. And now tonight, or yesterday, or what? on Thursday night in Detroit,
everyone had the sausages made.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't reach 10 minutes either at 9:34. So it's two games in a row, and that's for a guy who had picked up some momentum in the first few games after he came back from injury, was racking up points. But again, it's weird because he had his best moments as a Canadian player early in the season when he was put on the PK. He was taken off the power play. He was playing center instead of playing the wing. And now he comes back from his injury, goes back on second power play, not on the PK, and he's back on the wing rather than center. So basically he's back to his old duties, and it seems to have caught up to him. And I know that, there's some people. I tend to read the comments for better or for worse sometimes. And I know there's someone on YouTube who said, why are you talking about putting Kapanen on fourth line? He's got 20 goals. He's the first rookie to have that since God knows when. And you two geniuses are talking about demoting him to the fourth line. Well, I think that the 20 goals are in part, yes, he's a smart player, but I mean, he's been playing with Demidov, who's been, setting up a lot of his goals. But I feel like his game as a whole seems to be catching up a little bit to him. Whereas you look at a guy like Texier, who's really getting his legs are fresh and he's got a great awareness to the game. And right now he's in a position where he could help them more than, than playing 13-46 the way he did against Detroit.
Yeah, so the lesson here is for all you people watching on YouTube, if you leave one comment and Mark reads it, it's going to influence him to such an extent that it gets mentioned on the pod. So that's yes, of the thousands of people watching on YouTube, you one person.
Especially the ones where you say, Marc-Antoine looks amazing.
If you refer to us as geniuses, you'll get on the pod. So, but no, it's for sure like there are some difficult decisions that are going to come, and we've been focused on the defense. We're going to talk about it because as good of a game as Caden Gooley and Alex Carey played on Tuesday, they were not nearly as good tonight. And that remains an issue, but I think there are some – it's not an opportunity because the Canadiens need to lock down their playoff spot, but there are games – Martin St. Louis has to start looking toward his potential playoff lineup and what can he do. And he's been so consistent with a lot of his lineup decisions and a lot of his line decisions that he doesn't really know what else is out there.
No.
Not lately, at least, definitely since the Olympic break, but even before that. And so when we talk about, rejigging the second line a little bit, I think there are possibilities there. Mention Texier. Bolduc could be a possibility there. There's, when Doc gets back, he could be a possibility there. Like there are ways to refresh that second unit so that it produces some offense and produces more importantly than offensive zone time. Like I'm not even talking about goals. I'm just talking about spending time in the offensive zone.
Yeah, which is what Texier is really good at. He extends his own time.
I mean, every line he's been on has played excellent so far. He's been on 3 lines since he got back into the lineup, and every line he's played on was good in that game. Right. So that's not a coincidence. And it was questionable that he sat out for as long as he did. I understand there were decisions a particular decision that Martin St. Louis was trying to avoid that led to that. But yeah, it's there are some issues up front for sure. The fact that neither Kapanen nor Newhook got on the ice over the last 7 minutes or so when you're down a goal, you would like to think your second line would get some time in a situation like that. So that's an issue. And again, I mean, to go back to the defense, I mean, it was such a big talking point before the game against Boston because he changed his pairings. Martin basically refusing to talk about his pairings because they're going to change during the game, and then you start the game and the pairings stay the same. Well, tonight they did not so much, And so in the end, I guess he got the last laugh because after the game, I was like snarky, like, "Oh, that lasted 12 hours. Look at how well the pairings lasted." but tonight, I mean, it speaks to the fact that the way he deploys his defense and the way he maintains his pairings is performance based. And the one thing he could not say Tuesday morning is that the reason I juggle is because half my defense kind of sucks. There's a problem here. I can't play all my guys late in games when we're tied, high leverage situations because half is an exaggeration, but definitely there's 1 out of the 6 guys, whether it's Struble or Jackeye, who I need to accommodate for the fact that I can't play that guy late in the game. And it leads to this juggling. And depending on at what point he determines the game is in question or the game is requires that kind of management, leads to the moment where the juggling starts. And it's an issue because like Hudson after the game on Tuesday, I was talking to him about it. He's like, well, I'm willing to play with anyone. I'm like, I'm sure, of course you're willing. You're willing to play with children in NDG. Like, of course you're willing to play with anyone. But what is the benefit of having against Struble all night? Basically,
Yeah.
Played with him all night, other than the late period offensive situations where he went out with Dobson.
Which we saw again tonight.
Yeah, well, yeah. And so and the one interesting thing he said is he's like, it's nice when you could talk to one guy and talk about the shift you just had, knowing that you're going out to the next shift with that guy, so you can actually problem solve with that guy. And when you're not quite sure who the next guy you're going to go out with is, it's more of a group discussion. You're not talking to one guy, you're talking to 3 guys, because you could be going out with any one of these 3 guys. And 2 of those guys weren't on the ice with you the last time. And so they're kind of like, why are you telling me about this? I wasn't even on the ice. What are you talking about? And so it just makes it a little more complicated. I can understand Marty defending why he was doing it, because he can't go up in front of the microphones and the cameras and be like, you idiot. The reason why I'm doing this is because the defensemen are not good enough, and that I have certain good defensemen that want to get on the ice more than my bad defensemen. But that's the reality. And sometimes the look he gives you is like, could you read between the lines, please? Do me a favor and just read between the lines. Why would I do this otherwise? And I think we saw it tonight. It's that's why he does it. And so
but at the same time, you look at Jaden Struble. Let's say he might not be playable 17 or 18 minutes a night, but he's certainly not the reason why the Canadians lost.
No, he's not. I'm not saying this is the reason why they lost. They lost because they had 3 forwards deep on a play in the third period when they're up 1-0. I think that contributed to it for sure. But this is, and I'm just talking more in the perspective of, maybe the forward lines need to be tweaked, but the real important thing that needs to be solved between now and the playoffs, assuming the Canadians get there, is how they deploy their defense, and can they find a combination that from game to game is going to give you what you need. And I'm not blaming James Strudel for anything, but the reality is that this keeps happening every game. There's a certain point in every game where you have to start playing Lane Hudson ungodly amounts, and you have to start playing Matheson, Dobson ungodly amounts. And that's why Tuesday I thought was so significant, because that was the best we'd seen Caden Gooley. Yeah. And look, he's 6 minutes less than he played on Tuesday. Tonight he was at 16:32. He was at 22.5, I think, against Boston. So he played less than Carrier tonight, who was his partner. It's concerning. And the tipping point really is Gooley.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's funny because, it's not funny. But
Caden Gooley doesn't find it funny.
No. But Lane Hudson playing 24 minutes a night. He's the guy who played the most on the Canadians tonight. He ends up being paired with your number 6 guy, and a guy who you have to manage and say, well,
how much did they actually play together?
Did they play a lot together? Well, 5-on-5 they played the most together. Obviously, he was the most regular D partner for Lane Hudson. They played 5-on-5, 11 minutes. Barely 11 minutes together. And then Hudson had a few shifts with Dobson, 3:22.
Primarily played with Struble.
Yeah. Carrier, 2:33, and Gooley, maybe just one long shift at 1:07. So that's pretty much it. So, but it's a problem when your best defensive defenseman is being paired with a guy that's not even a regular in your lineup. It's
your best offensive defenseman.
Offensive, yes. What did I say?
Defensive.
Offensive.
I think Hudson's defense is underrated, but I wouldn't.
Not to that extent. Not to that extent. No, sorry. Thank you for catching that one. No. Offensive defenseman. I mean, this is in terms of roster building, this is an area where clearly something is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of things that are not optimal in terms of roster building, which is why they did not empty the vault at the trade deadline, which is why they've taken a prudent approach to everything, and it all makes sense. And it's, again, not to beat a dead horse. The poor horse is very dead at this point. But Adam Engstrom played for Laval last night.
He was paired with Reinbacher,
and he was on the left.
Yeah,
which I found quite interesting. Those 2 guys are there. Again, between now and the playoffs, they have to secure a playoff spot, and maybe the coach isn't going to like it, but they have to try some things. there are things they have to try, and I think that's one of them. I think they need to try, and I know that there is a reluctance to bring up linebacker, and I understand it, and I get it. This is not optimal, but Engstrom has been in Montreal already this season. It would not be that big of a leap. Fowler got one game in Laval before he came up.
Yep.
I wonder.
Yeah.
So there's a you brought up an interesting point saying that the team needs to get ready to gear towards the playoffs. Do you feel as though there's a difference in figuring out what can be your optimal lineup for the playoffs versus the lineup that would best help you getting into the playoffs? Is it the same lineup?
It can be, yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, Listen, I mean, they played well against Boston on Tuesday. Dobish bailed them out on numerous occasions. But they played well. I'm not gonna take away from the way they played against a team on a back-to-back on Tuesday. They gave up some chances, but you're gonna give up chances in a game. I thought they played, by and large, a mature, responsible game, and we're good. They weren't bad against Detroit either. Like, honestly, I thought for 2 periods, for sure, they were willing to play. That game was a dull dump and chase fest, and it was like, who's going to get most bored with this first? That's like basically.
But there's going to be a few of those games until the end.
Well,
you know?
that's playoff hockey, man. That's it. So that's why it can be both, because you have to know how to play that kind of hockey. Like, and you have to be willing to be patient, wait for your opportunities, play a 1-0 game, where you get a power play goal, and try to run. You're not gonna shut teams out all the time, but that style of game, called for a third forward being high. I hate to harp on that, but it's really, you're in the third period of a game, you're up 1-0. There's no reason for 3 forwards to be caught deep on an offensive zone possession. So these are things that. So I thought Joe Valeno was really good tonight.
Yeah. Well, he didn't look like a guy who had not played in, since
6
the
weeks.
game in Winnipeg.
Yeah, 6
So
weeks.
that's before the Olympics. And he slid right in, and he doesn't hurt you when he's on the ice, I was really doubtful early in the season, mainly at training camp. I was looking at him saying, really, does he deserve a spot? But he sort of grew on me as the season went on. And, Josh Anderson being out for the game against Detroit, they needed someone to man the power, the PK. In his absence, it was just natural that Valeno would step right in and take his spot.
Who better to have in a low event game
than Joe Valeno? Yeah.
Like, honestly, and it's gonna be low event hockey, right? Like, from here on in, we got a real good glimpse, a better glimpse than Tuesday, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, that game was basically life or death for Detroit. Like, they've been reeling the entire month of March. They don't have their captain. It's there, and this has been 2 marches in a row before this one where they have just completely face planted in March. And so there's a lot of pressure in the market to make the playoffs. Once Buffalo's playoff spot is clinched, they will be the longest playoff drought in the league, with the GM, who's a franchise legend, who's on the hot seat. And so it was foreseeable that was going to be the type of game it was. And remember, Detroit's season began by getting completely smacked by the Canadiens at home, and Todd McClellan lacing into them after the game in a way that you rarely see a coach do after the home opener, the home opening game, and he just tore them a new one. It was vicious. And now they find themselves in this situation where it's the same team in their same building, and their season's on the line. They're going to play that way. They're going to play the game that they played tonight, and they go into the third period down a goal. I mean, the pressure was on them. Like, they deserve a lot of credit. They came back and they won a game they absolutely had to win. But
that's sixth win in 16 games for them. So they were reeling indeed. But the result is that by winning this game against the Canadiens, they got the same number of points in Montreal. They just played one more game. And Boston also, that's in the mix. So basically they got an identical record to Boston and same number of points in Montreal. So it's excruciatingly tight. Yeah, extremely tight. Why make it difficult? Why make it difficult? Yeah, exactly. It's my second language also. Yeah. Keep it simple. But you mentioned briefly the power play. They scored again. I mean, it was an away game. Not that it matters, but they scored on the power play on the road. Slavkovsky scored his 25th goal of the season. It was his 13th on the year on the power play. And so that's more than half of his goals scored on the power play, a lot of them obviously from the slot. He's tied for 5th in the NHL in goals scored on the power play with 13. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, that is good. I love the passive aggressive kind of nod to Marty there. Not that it matters, road home, but whatever. Yeah.
Well, ultimately it does not. It's true.
They keep scoring on the road, though.
They do.
And they don't score at home.
Yeah. They have to figure that out.
Marty says it doesn't matter.
No.
They do have to figure it out. Well, they're actually a much better road team than a home team. Actually, they entered tonight. They entered tonight. No one in the NHL had fewer regulation losses on the road than the Montreal Canadiens. They were tied with Colorado and I believe Minnesota or Dallas, one of the two. But it was the two central teams and Montreal, fewest regulation losses on the road. Now they've obviously just lost some regulation on the road, but they are generally a better road team. So I guess I honestly like Marty's reaction to that tying goal. I don't remember seeing him that angry behind the bench, other than being angry at the referees.
Yeah.
I haven't seen his anger directed at his own players behind the bench to that extent often. Or I don't remember the last time I thought that. I mean, the reference point is always the vomit game in Washington, but otherwise, that was a long time ago. But yeah, he was not pleased. And I feel like he probably feels similarly about how that goal happened.
Well, I mean, if they have an inconsistent defensive game, the one thing that can bail them out is being able to score goals. But you have to be, no matter what, you have to be reliable. But right now, this second line is neither producing a great deal, but it's also becoming vulnerable defensively. So that's why I think that late in the season, and it's not a knock on those young players necessarily. I think it's just part of the process. But just for Kapanen, just the way that it is maybe for Bolduc, who's a second-year player who's adjusting to a new organization, it's not the same as for young players arriving earlier in the rebuild where there were tons of runway for those kids to make mistakes, to learn, and say, you know what, ultimately, even if we lose games, even if I go through a rough patch or whatever, it's not going to matter all that much. But right now, those games matter. Collectively, for their place in the standings, for how far they can hope to go in the playoffs. So it's just tough to be a young player at this point in the Canadiens' development, because what's expected of them and the pressure that's put on them is not the same as it was for the young players of 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, but this is kind of the crux of what these guys are navigating, right? As a management group and as a team, is the overall project that they're trying to complete benefits from Kapanen playing in these games. Good night. Thanks for coming. They benefit from Demidov getting those minutes in the last, he got on when they pulled the goalie, but otherwise he sat for a while. They benefit from all these guys playing through this and experiencing it.
Sure.
But if that hurts your chances of making the playoffs, there are other guys on the team who are like, well, wait a minute, the development phase of the rebuild is over. Like we're now in a results phase. We can't just be throwing guys out there when they're clearly drowning and having trouble keeping their heads above water. We need people who can tread water. If failing swimming, we need water treaders, at least get their shifts over so you can get to us. And I'm thinking basically I'm trying to put myself inside Nick Suzuki's brain right now. It's basically like get us guys that can survive their shifts so that we can get back on the ice and get us to the finish line. And frankly, the fact that seems to be the reality for the Canadiens would further suggest that it's not their time. And so make decisions that will help you get to your time, and like for all the suffering you might get by keeping Kapanen on the second line, maybe that makes him that much better a player. And when this team is actually in its window, when Demidov is mature and Hudson is fully mature and linebackers on the top four and all these other things have fallen into place, Capan will be that much better because he got to play down the stretch this year and he got to play in the playoffs and got to experience that. But it's a tough sell. It's a tough sell in a room where they've had a great season. They've avoided, they still have not lost more than 3 games in regulation all year, and that was back in mid-November. That's an impressive accomplishment for this group, and they probably feel like they wouldn't like to hear what I just said because they would have no interest in having a player tough through these games for the benefit of the version of me 2 years from now. They're worried about the version of me right now.
And they believe in themselves so much that they want things to happen now. And I think, and if you take every player individually and the best version that we saw of each of these players, I guess everybody hopes that say, I can come back to the best version that I was of that player, whether it was in early November or, late January or whatever. But it's just a matter of assembling it, putting it all together so that the team can be at maximum of their capacity. But, just as well as I do, that it never happens. You don't have all of the guys playing at the top of their capacity at one time in the season, whether it's because of just ebbs and flows of performances, their health, or whatever. But when it's common knowledge that younger players, as you go through towards the end of the regular season and in the playoffs, when it becomes extremely tight, when it becomes, more harder fought, there's less room, and it's not necessarily, it's big boys hockey.
Yeah. But not to be, I don't want this to all be doom and gloom. I think we should recognize the fact that Nick Suzuki got another point tonight. Juraj Slafkovsky scored again. Like, those 3 guys are frankly better than I thought they were ever going to be. And I think back to last season in Minnesota when I asked to talk to Nick Suzuki and he sat with me alone. And I basically told him, you're never really going to be a big offensive star. I didn't put it in those terms. I didn't put it in those terms. You can look up the story. I wrote about it. And I'm like, I was like, this is kind of what you are, no? Like a really good two-way forward two-way centerman who gets 60 to 70 points a year. Like, every team would kill for that. Like, that's great. And he was like, obviously we have none of it, but it's incredible. Like, almost from that point on, like not long after that, definitely from the return from Four Nations, the guy is like an elite centerman in this league. Like, he is one of the top centers in this league.
Yeah, so thanks to you.
I'm not taking credit. I'm not taking credit for it. And to Suzuki's credit, he has not thrown that back in my face. But he didn't get angry. But he was definitely defiant. Like, he was like, I think you're wrong. I think my numbers are good. Not the numbers you look at, but the numbers I look at. That's where we looked at offense generating plays, OGN, right? And this is actually a number that was invented by the Canadiens' head of analytics, which is Chris Boucher, back when he was doing sort of like freelance analytics work, or actually just doing it on his own time, which led to what he does now. But Adam Nicholas has a database of everyone's offense generating. I don't think what's it called, offense generating plays.
I think so. Yeah.
Offense driving plays, something like that.
No,
generating.
Yeah.
So Nick's OGP at the time was quite strong.
Yeah.
And he just kind of mentioned it in passing. He kind of got up at the end of the interview. He was like, well, I like my OGP. I look at OGP. I was like, what the hell is OGP? It's like offense generating play. Big Cat takes care of that. He's like he's really, he's borderline cocky about it. And I was like, oh yeah? Cause like, you're right. Your goals, assists, and points are not looking all that great right now. But he's like, yeah, OGP. And that's kind of the secret sauce of analytics, is that sometimes it tells you a story that's lying beneath the surface that you don't see. And then from that, he finished 89 points last year. That conversation happened in November-ish, and he was less than a point a game at the time. He finished well over a point a game, and obviously his finish after Four Nations was ridiculous. But the Canadiens, like, they have legitimate pieces here, and like, you're watching it, it's clear that those pieces are not entirely properly surrounded. Like, it's not the surrounding pieces are still in a state of flux, and there's a reason why Kent Hughes looked like a man who hadn't slept for 5 days when he spoke to us at the trade deadline. There's a reason why they were looking all over the league for certain types of players. They know that. And so all of this is gravy. But the actual turkey and potatoes are good. Just need better gravy.
I feel like in that whole image, you're the stuffing.
Yes.
So-
You're torturing that.
Yes, I am. Sorry. I am. I do that sometimes.
But I mean, it was a gutsy comment to Suzuki, knowing that if there's one player in the league who consistently gets better offensively, at least from a statistic point of view, it's him. I mean, he's in his seventh year in the NHL, and constantly from one year to the next.
2 years ago that conversation happened.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a 77-point year.
Okay.
It was 2 years ago.
Well, that bailed you out.
No, not really. Not really. I still said it, and he still didn't like it. It doesn't bail me out.
No, for sure. No. I'm teasing, but I mean, I'm fascinated because we say that, oh, well, he gets better every year. Very few players have that where, it's a straight line going up through 7 years, and it's going to be the same. He had 89 points last year, and this year he's going to beat those numbers. So it's pretty fascinating. He's at 82 now.
No, I said 81. That's updated.
That's updated already.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, well, 81. I still think that he's going to earn some new
He's tied for 8th in the
new
league
career
scoring.
totals. So it's great because the Canadians, we've been talking for so long about finding a number one center, and they've got one.
A point per game center.
Yeah.
Under this market talks about that a lot.
Yeah. That's it, right? Jeff Gordon used to say that. Yeah.
Ken talks about that. Ken talked about that at a press conference. This market, you seem to talk about that a lot, the point of game center. I'm like, yeah, because we don't know what they look like. We've never seen one. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it turns out that it's the captain of this team. So that's pretty good. And we're focused on the game against Detroit, but on Tuesday against the Bruins, his line mate got his 40th goal.
Yeah.
First time in 32 years, as everybody knows. And so the first one since Vincent D'Anfous. And who was the guy who scored 40 goals before Vincent D'Anfous? Brian Bellows. Way to go, guys. Yeah, everybody knows.
That's a good segment. Should we ask the winners to
Sure.
trivia?
Sure, we
I
can.
actually I corrected the trivia answers. So I want to give a shout out to second place because you did much better than third place. I would say actually well enough better than third place. Is Stuart Wiseman still here? Stuart?
No, he left.
No. So you will get to know this on the podcast. You don't win anything, unfortunately, other than our love and respect. But Stuart Wiseman, and I'm going to butcher this name. Is it Zach Larboni? So you guys finished second with 19 points.
There you go.
All right.
Congratulations. Our winner by a landslide is Stefanity right here. 26 points. The average was roughly 9. Congrats, Stefan. Well done. A resident doctor here. Yeah.
Yeah, literally.
Literally.
Literally resident.
We'll put the questions in the chat. Yes.
Yeah. So, Caulfield doesn't score 40 goals without Suzuki. And that 40th goal.
Suzuki doesn't have 81 points though.
Exactly.
It's a very, very pleasant symbiotic relationship. Yes.
Absolutely.
But can they do it without Slav?
Yeah, that's the question.
I think they can.
I think they can too.
You at this point in the season, because we haven't seen. I think that we said a lot about Slavkovsky that it had been extremely beneficial for him to figure out who he had become as a player and reconnect maybe to his former self of before he came to Montreal, when he was deployed away from those two guys, because he was not just a facilitator anymore, and he connected with some playmaking aspects of his game that maybe he had neglected just for the benefit of Caulfield and Suzuki. So yes, all that time that he spent away from those two helped Slavkovsky a great deal, but I think that it also helped Suzuki and Caulfield to say, you know what, maybe that we can.
Well, they couldn't for a while when it first happened. It was tough sledding for those two.
That's true, but they recovered from that. There was an adjustment period, and right now, when you look at them, yes, of course, they benefit from Slavkovsky being there. He's another threat on that line. But in the current state of affairs, I really wouldn't mind that Slavkovsky would be put on another line and try to spread the offense a little bit.
Yeah, specifically the line he was on before. That would be the thing to do, because that line's has some tough sledding right now too, and so it would be, and then the question is, it's unfortunate again. Doc is hurt as he is, and because he would be a candidate. I thought he was starting to build some momentum playing on that line until he wasn't. But Texier, handful of games. You think back to the last time Texier was there. It went okay, but again, I'm sure Suzuki and Caulfield were like, that's the guy that's on our line.
Yeah,
that guy does things that this guy can't.
But the numbers, the metrics were very good with Texier with them.
They were. So I think Marty needs to recalibrate a few things. Obviously, I don't know what he does on defense. That's the thing, is that he has one game where he gets to just roll his defense pairs. And that's it. It ends. It's the next game. It's the same kind of jumbled mess to some extent. And up front, I think tinkering now might be necessary. And it's not because they lost to Detroit. It's also now they've lost 3 of the last 4. It's getting to a point where you can't come away from 3 games out of 4 with 2 points.
No,
2 out of 8. So that's.
But they've got more flexibility up front to tinker and make some changes than what they can do on the
not
defense.
without Anderson and Doc. I mean, they're pretty tight. Yeah.
No, of course, Anderson is meant to be a day-to-day thing. He seemingly got hurt when he hit McAvoy late in the game on Tuesday night. He had an amazing game against the Bruins. I mean, it was really vintage, late season, almost playoff hockey. Anderson. I remember that he told us quite a long time ago, he said, after an amazing performance, along those lines, he said, well, I wish I could play like that for 82 games, but physically it's impossible for me to do that. So, and Martin St. Louis echoed that, and he said as much, on Wednesday, saying that this is just not sustainable. So that version of Anderson, when he can get it, he loves to have it. And I think that this is a player that I like more than the vast majority of fans. But even though he's not going to be necessarily the impact player that we saw against the Bruins on a consistent basis, you love to have him. Because when push comes to shove, if you're looking around, say, I wish we had that sort of player. Well, you've got one, and he's going to be there.
They need more of them.
They need more of him.
Yeah. And I think they recognize that. And they've tried to draft more of him. Every year they've drafted a guy that they hope becomes some version of him. Going back to the Florian pick, and then Thorpe, and Papanikis, who's going to be a guaranteed spot in the Memorial Cup. They've done it every year. A late round pick. They've used it to try and find another Josh Anderson type player. So it's unfortunate he wasn't in this game, but he was looking. Tuesday night looked like he was okay, now I'm going to play the way that I play when games matter. Hopefully he's not out for too long, but the Canadiens have to regroup a little bit. It's not a disaster. They're still in a playoff spot. And you always got to remember, and I try to remind people, when the season started, if the Canadiens were comfortably in a playoff spot on March 20th when they wake up in the morning, how would you feel about that? And most fans on October 5th would be like, wow, that's a miracle. That'd be amazing. Yeah. That'd be so great. And so I think the Canadiens, there's a little bit of house money going. I'm not going to do gravy. A little bit of house money going on. Some house money being played with to some extent. That I think gives them some liberty to try some things and really tinker a little bit. Even though I'm sure they feel every point is crucial, which it is, but they can still. They're not capitulating a game just because they try something in the lineup. So
it's always I find it to be a difficult line to toe between the team that's still developing, that's still far from being a mature team. And also, when you talk about playing with house money, it's so tempting to say, "Yeah, but while they're there, it's so close." And and then you sort of
Well, how many
up
people
your
leave when they have
expectations.
lots of house money? When you have a lot of house money in the casino,
Yeah.
how many people walk out of the casino?
That's it.
Very, very few. That's why the casinos win. So it's like,
Especially when they collect that house money in very little time. And the Canadians, that's pretty much what they did because they rebuilt in record time. So we're just it all happened so fast in their recovery or their rebuild that you sort of because you're right. I mean, nobody would have thought that this late in the season they'd be not as short of a playoff spot, but in a good situation. So now it's just a matter of saying, okay, well, what can they do and how can they manage their team to at least avoid this late in the season to have a losing streak and a collapse.
Right.
They had an amazing push last season, but one of the outtakes or maybe the conclusions from last season, well, it was all great, but make sure that next year you don't put yourself in a position where you have to have such an amazing stretch, late in the season in order to put yourself in the playoff spot. Well, they've gained some stability and consistency this year, but they're not quite there yet. And I don't think that this is something that they're going to solve this season necessarily, but at least what can they do at this point to say, well, what we've got, let's not lose it. Just, it's like
let's try to maximize it. Let's try to optimize it.
Well, yeah, that's it. Well, they cannot maximize anything. They cannot add. It's just they got what they got.
What they have.
That's it.
What they already have.
Right.
And there's that, and I include Laval in that equation. They only have 4 call-ups left, but I think there's room here to see. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Like, obviously, Reinbach was a part of the long-term plan, and I think they don't want to jeopardize that for whatever he could do. But Adam Engstrom's an NHL defenseman. Like, he is. In 25 other organizations, he would be playing the NHL, I believe. You have that guy. He's there. He's healthy now.
Mm-hmm.
I would give him a shot. I'm not saying that he's the solution to everything, but I'd just like to see what it looks like. Now that he had the little taste, same as Fowler. Fowler got a little taste, went back to Laval, comes back much better prepared to be called up. It's not a huge deal. He's done the rookie lap, all that stuff's done. Engstrom, same deal. So I think I would like to see it.
We chatted before the game. You mentioned Fowler. We chatted before the game about the goalies and the fact that Dobesh, after a stellar performance against the Bruins, not in a, let's say, for the sake of consistency or whatever, but they could have turned to Fowler. But at the same time, Dobesh played so well against Boston that it was his net to lose. And you were telling me, you said, is it going to be a situation where you win, you're in?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a situation where if you give your team a chance to win, you're in. And I don't know if Dobesh didn't do that tonight. I mean, it's not as if he should be blamed for anything that happened tonight. So I don't know. That doesn't necessarily mean that he has to go back to Fowler on Saturday, but Dobesh did everything in his power. He gave them a chance to win. He quite literally did his job. He can't control a puck bouncing on a backtracking defenseman that just goes to their best goal scorer and he's all alone in front of him with 3 minutes left in the game. That's not Dobesh. So it's
that was as fluky a goal as you could find. Matheson blowing a tire there. It's
well, he had lost the puck already. Like the puck was lost, and then he blew the tire trying to go get the puck back. So not great. We want to leave a lot of time for the mailbag because you're all here and it's late and it's a weeknight. And so why don't we do the mailbag now?
Okay, so this question here is a follow-up from one that was asked during the last Monday mailbag, where you were essentially asked about how the Canadians can avoid ending up like the Toronto Maple Leafs, a team that became very top-heavy and potentially limited in the playoffs. And your answer focused around cap management, playoff sample size, in the sense that we've only had one playoffs series last year, and the team culture is better here. But I'm wondering if the Rangers actually might be a different cautionary tale that is very similar to what we potentially could experience. So to give a little bit more context, if you look at the post-2018 rebuild under Jeff Gordon, they also built around skill. They accumulated high draft capital and became competitive relatively quickly. Then after a moment, like the Tom Wilson incident, which for those who don't remember, he essentially injured Panarin and got into a fight with Buchnevich. And then this led to the team being called soft because the skilled players were essentially fighting Tom Wilson. So things like that led the conversation in the media and the fans to believe that they needed more grit in their lineup. And this led to significant change in direction, including the firing of Gordon and Davidson being let go. So in hindsight, it's at least debatable that this shift, it's debatable whether this shift in direction going with more grit actually helped them or not. So with Montreal having its own version of that kind of moment, with Tom Wilson hitting Carrier last, Game 4, and with Florida reinforcing this idea that you need both skill and physicality to win, there's obviously a lot of similarities to what Gordon is experiencing now, potentially to what he experienced with New York. So what do you think is being misunderstood or overlooked by the media and fans who are pushing for this idea of grit when it comes to the long-term vision of this team? And do you see them building a style of hockey that replaces the Florida style that we all know now and set as the standard of what we think is needed to get to that Stanley Cup level? And do you think that there's a chance they're approaching that question of grit differently than how it's typically framed?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
I'll start with maybe I'll just
No, that's okay. That's okay.
Give the microphone back. That was a well thought out. That was like a dissertation. Honestly, like that was very well thought out. Yeah, no, absolutely. Put a lot of work into
The
that.
whole podcast.
I'm going to tell you right off the bat, the one difference between that situation and this situation is that Tom Dolan does not own the Montreal Canadiens. James Dolan. Yeah, Tom Dolan.
There's no Tom
There's
Dolan.
no Tom.
There's
Sure, there is a
there's
Tom
Tom
Dolan
Dundon. There's Tom
Tom
Dundon.
Right. James Dolan does not own the Montreal Canadiens. James Dolan was humiliated by that whole Tom Wilson situation and really sort of triggered that entire change, and they really haven't recovered since. So Jeff Molson is not likely to do that. Now, I believe this management group does understand that they miss that element on this team. They're lacking that element. Ken Hughes was on our podcast, literally saying we are not going to become the Florida Panthers. So that's not something that they're considering, but there's definitely an element of what makes the Florida Panthers the Panthers that they recognize that they need. Jeff Gordon said the same thing on our podcast and actually saw the acquisition of Budzik as a step in that direction. It's been a little disappointing, but he's still young and could actually be a step in that direction. And I think that's an example of who they see. Like Budzik has skill, he can score, but can he bring that extra added element? And I think those are the types of players they're looking for. Skilled players who can skate, who can handle the puck, who can score, but can also do that.
Yeah, and I think they're not going to try to recreate the Florida Panthers or any other team that won the Cup before. I think that one thing that's very clear is that they're not chasing somebody else's identity. They're determined to win with their own identity that they are still developing. And I think that it's not necessarily predicated or evolving around toughness. There's no doubt about that, but that element is missing right now. And I don't know to which extent, Martin Saint Louis talks a lot about how there's team toughness. It's a choice by the players. It's a team's choice to say, well, we're going to play with that amount of grit. There's something that could be instilled in the room, but it has to come naturally to enough players so that it diffuses across the room, because you cannot have one or two guys that will convince the rest of the group, say, you got to be physical. It has to be in your nature. It doesn't have to be necessarily, though, the main or the focal point of your identity as a player. The Canadians are not in that direction right now. But I think that adding one or two guys that would add to this team toughness would probably make them just a little bit harder to play against. And some guys, Budzik being one, Slavkovsky being another, but maybe 3 or 4 guys in the lineup, maybe Kirby Doc if he sticks around long enough, who would stay healthy, would basically benefit from that influence. But right now, I think that this is an element that's lacking, and you don't have enough of those guys to make sure that that decision in the room can be properly made. I'm sure that the guys are well intended and they want to show that grit and express it, but they're focused on other things at the same time. They're focused on playing the type of defense that Marty wants them to play. They want to play through their strengths, and that amount of creativity offensively is part of the team's strengths. So they'll do that. But I think that the grit it cannot be forced on the team. So I think that just an astute acquisition or two doesn't have to be, it didn't have to be at the deadline, but within the next year or two would go a long way.
You mean like a mystery trade?
No,
is that what you're referring to?
No, not really. I don't. It doesn't have. No, it doesn't have to be like a central player. It's got to be a guy who's good enough to play in that system, to play with the identity that the team has established.
Yes.
But it doesn't have to be a prominent player. And who knows? If Florian Jackai develops his foot speed enough that they're comfortable playing him regularly down the road, he eventually one day he could be one of those players. They have some homegrown, but I think that more established NHL players who could be higher up in the lineup. You got your dreams of Matthew Nyes and whatnot, but they could also be support players, and it'll be just as fun.
Yeah,
Like Sidney Crosby.
sure. Perfect example.
Perfect.
Perfect example. Question? Yeah.
Hold this. I will point this way.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So I don't have a whole dissertation to. This is going to be right off of my head. Okay, all right. By the way, thank you for doing that. It's really nice to see you guys. You've been with me like for 6-7 years, on the road, and also doing my dishes and everything. So it's like it's really nice to see you guys actually. I hope it's true for everyone here. I have a question about the reclamation project. When Hughes and Gordon arrived here in Montreal, they were talking about getting players who are closer to the windows that they wanted. So we have like the most famous one would be Kirby Doc, but also Newhook and everything like that. Now we're like 3 or 4 years away from those moments. Doc's contract is going to be up this year, and now he's already injured another time. So I just wanted to know, what do you think about those reclamation project? Is it something in the hindsight, when you look at what they've done before, that was worth it? Just big picture. And my second question would be, with Doc, what would you do if you were the GM?
Yeah. I don't think that there's any regret to have regarding their acquisition. I think that Doc was a great gamble. You cannot assume necessarily that because he had a wrist injury that it took a long time to recover from, that he would become injury prone. I think that they learned it along the way after that. It's unfortunate, but I think it was worth the gamble, because when he's healthy and he's got enough games under his belt, he's a good player. And I think that if I were them, I would have made that trade. I would still do it today. Newhook, ultimately, I'm sure that they went to their head scouts and say, who exactly could we have with those 2 draft picks? And is there significant targets that, we cannot skip, or can we live without those fairly high picks? So, I mean, ultimately, it has not hurt them, at least not yet. And Newhook, I'm less fond of the Newhook trade than the Doc trade. I feel as though the ceiling for Doc was higher than for Newhook. So if you compare the price to pay for both players, yeah, Newhook's been healthier-ish, and he's has not necessarily been a lot less productive offensively than Doc, but just in terms of ceiling, I preferred the bet on Doc than on Newhook. But in both cases, I did call Newhook. Yeah, I did, and you know, I thought
different price point. A wildly different price point.
Yeah, for sure. There's one that's against number 13, and the other one is what 20.
Well, it's against Romanov. It's against an established NHL player. Right?
That's right. Yeah, that's fine. But they paid a high price for Doc, but I think that it was worth the bet. I didn't go like, oh, what did they do that? But now they're at a tough spot with Doc because he's, you know, do you qualify him at that price? You know, at $4 million for next season, we touched on that I think in the last episode.
Yeah.
You know, you can either say, well, we might not qualify you, but maybe we could sign you for 2 years instead of just one and at a lower price tag, or we could just qualify you and go for 1 year at $4 million. But it's
I would honestly rather qualify.
Yeah.
I would rather qualify. And I have a feeling. So Doc's timeline basically gets him the worst case scenario of his timeline, which based on our history with Kirby Doc, is probably how long it's going to take for him to be healthy, has him coming back right before the playoffs. And I have a feeling that Kirby Doc in the playoffs is going to do something that makes it very hard to not qualify him. Because Kirby Doc, I agree with you in the sense that the bet on Doc, not better than Newhook. I like the bet on Newhook too because you're late first and an early second. Like honestly, they didn't give up a whole lot for Newhook. They're valuable picks, but they had a lot of picks. But Doc is exactly the type of player they lack. Like, I mean, it's really, you need guys like that. And you know, he's so tantalizing and they've kind of invested so much in him and they've waited. I feel like once this guy gets traded, he's gonna explode. Like he's just gonna start to become a dominant player. He's never gonna get injured, and it's just gonna be like this long, steady stream of green lights, and he's just like coasting through green lights and just scoring tons of goals. Like
Sorry.
Well, I wouldn't trade this guy right away. Is what I'm saying. Is that I would not cut bait on him. I know it's been a while. I know people are extremely frustrated. He always gets hurt. I understand that. I mean, I've said it on the show, but like Andrei Markov was in this position, and people felt the same way about Andrei Markov at some point. Maurice Richard, exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was deemed a lemon at first because he was injured so often.
Because he was injured so often. Yes. The Rocket. So it's sometimes players either figure out a way to stay healthy or just hit a stretch of good luck because they've had so much bad luck. But they need more players like Kirby Doc. It's really, and I feel like just the picture that's painted of him is just out of frustration that he's the first big thing this administration did. He was the first big move of the rebuild. They do it at the Bell Center. It's a huge show. It's a big deal. Everyone's super excited about this guy, and he just has not delivered since that point because he keeps getting injured. But if you think of the guy who got concussed and is at the end of his first season in Montreal, that guy who was getting into fights, who was hitting people, he was mean and nasty and skilled and making plays and doing all the things that you want a forward to do. I have a feeling if he's back for the playoffs, we might see some version of that guy in the playoffs. In which case, qualifying him would be, to me, smarter than not qualifying him and negotiating like a lower cap, longer contract. Like, give him 1 more year. $4 million is not going to bust them, So I would do that.
So the timeline on his injury is 2 to 4 weeks. So 4 weeks brings you to the playoffs, basically. Yeah. So that's the worst case scenario as projected by the medical staff. So who knows? Maybe he beats that timeline and comes back more.
I hope he proves me wrong, but
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Behavior is the best predictor of your
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So Alex Newhook was traded actually for a number 31 draft pick, who turned into Mikhail Gulyayev, who was deemed to be an offensive defenseman, 5'10" though. He's not a big defenseman, but his offensive numbers in the KHL seems to be going the other way as he gets older, so it's not great. And Ethan Gauthier, second round pick, 37, so he's with the Crunch. Yeah. He's the son of our buddy Denny Gauthier.
Yeah, well, Colorado flipped that pick for Ross Cole.
Yeah.
That's the stinger of that pick, is that Colorado took that pick and turned it into Ross Colton, which the Canadians could have used a guy like Ross Colton.
Yeah, they could.
Yeah.
They could.
Well, they could have even then. I mean, that's the thing. The fact that Canadians got Newhook, they got Gulyayev and Colton.
Mm-hmm.
The argument could be made that Colton is not that big of a downgrade from Newhook.
No, that's fair.
At the time, that was the argument that could have been made. He was coming off, obviously, he won them the Stanley Cup. He scored the Stanley Cup winning goal for the Lightning against the Canadiens. So,
do you still have the same amount of hope for Newhook and his development and the player that he can become than you do for Doc?
I have a lot of hope for Newhook and his development and the player I think he can become.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he'll ever become the player he thinks he can become.
Right.
But I think as a really good middle six center / wing who can kill penalties and power play and is fast as hell and battles and is competitive. It's like as soon as he just I hate making this comparison again. He is Lars Eller, he is Lars Eller.
Right.
And as soon as he gets that in his head,
took Lars Eller a long time to put it in his
Lars
head.
Eller to get traded to Washington and be behind Backstrom and Kuznetsov and be like, okay, I'm not better than those guys. I'm going to lock in and become the best third line center in the league. Like Newhook could do that. I think definitely. It's just that he needs to be convinced. I've tried. I've had similar conversations with Alex Newhook that I had with Nick Suzuki. I've tried. He's not quite there yet, but at some point,
You're working on
I'm breaking him down. I'll break him down. Don't worry. But I think he could be that player, and I think he's a super valuable player to have. That player profile fits on a winning team super well. And I don't know if he'll be a center, if he'll be a winger going forward, whatever it is. But I would take all the traits that I just listed of Alex Newhook on my third line any day of the week.
Right. And use maybe his speed to make sure that if you are to dump the puck deep in the zone, that he uses his speed to make sure that he's the first to get them every single time.
Yeah. And more importantly, use his speed going towards his net. As fast as he goes towards the opposing net, which he was making great strides with. When he got hurt, that's how he was playing.
Right.
He was playing as fast coming back as he was going forward. And that was a real hammering point with Marty for a while with him, and he finally got through to him at the beginning of this season.
So we opened the show by talking about potential tinkering in, on his line. Is it getting late in the game, though, to try a new experiment? Say, we're going to put Newhook back at center, for example, or try combinations that we haven't seen so far this year. Is it because it's game 68? It's getting late in the game a little bit to figure out what can work for this team.
Well, do you continue doing something that doesn't work because it's too late in the game? I mean, I don't know. I feel like
it did before. That's the thing. It's just
it did before, yeah.
And you can maybe that we're guilty of recency bias of saying, we look at it from so up close that lately it hasn't been it, but there was a sample size.
To segue back to Sid's original question about the Maple Leafs, what sunk the Maple Leafs in the playoffs is they always had this. It worked before, it'll work at some point. They never made adjustments in the playoffs because they always stuck to whatever got them 110 points in the regular season, and they could go 2-3 games and it's not working in the playoffs. Well, it'll work. You stick with it, it'll work. And you have to avoid that. When you get to this time of year, I'm not saying to blow it all up. You don't have to blow it to smithereens and start from scratch, but try someone in a different spot. Just go back to Slav and see if that triggers something in Kapanen. And even Demidov, who's kind of slowed down and did not get the post-Olympic bump that Hudson got after Four Nations last year. He's finding it a little difficult. So I think it doesn't hurt to try things. And I don't think it's too late in the game to try things.
Yeah. Sure.
People have questions?
Yeah,
please.
right.
As you're talking about tinkering with the lines,
What's your name?
Jasmin.
Jasmine.
So if the fourth line with Anderson, no problem. For the drive, that was fun. So if the Anderson Dano Gallagher line is like a staple and they work together, you have Bolduc, Evans, and let's say Texier, but Slav with Kapanen, Demidov. When Hage comes along, do you put him with Suzuki and Caulfield?
Here we go. Let's go. Is it too late in the game for that?
That's a good one. Yeah.
I don't. Go ahead.
Well,
I'll leave the spicy ones for you.
Yeah, it all depends when he's going to be ready to join the team, right? And if they feel as though he's ready to join the Montreal Canadiens and not the Laval Rocket, they could. I would assume that they would want him in Montreal, but it's not necessarily. I mean, for all the talent that he's got, you were talking about the guys in the room, how they would perceive certain things.
Yeah.
I think that they believe in themselves enough that they won't necessarily want a kid who's got nice pedigree, fairly high draft pick. He's been an impactful player at the World Juniors. He's got the most assists of all NCAA players this year. So this is
third in scoring overall.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's a successful season for him. But at the same time, to just drop in the Canadiens locker room and we'll give you like a prime real estate spot on our roster. It might be a situation where in the thick of things, the leaders on this team will say, "Well, what has this kid done exactly?" We've got other worthy players who we believe in, and just give them a shot, and it's fine. We'll bring the kid along, and we're going to incorporate him into our group, but to give him like a prime mandate right from the get-go, especially if the Canadiens don't have a playoff spot secured by then, I don't necessarily see that happening. It's they need to see, and I think that Martin Saint-Louis will want to assess what he's got exactly, look at him, how does he behave in practice, where exactly, just by looking at him, properly assess where he could use him. But it's not because he's a first-round pick and he's been prolific in the NCAA that he's going to arrive and just be on the first line right away. I highly doubt that it's going to happen.
Well,
like
we
that.
saw it. We saw it last year, and Michael Hage is not Ivan Demidov, right? But we saw what they did with Demidov, and he was given a relatively prominent role, but not top line duty. Was not on the first power play until Patrick Laine was injured in the playoffs. It took till whatever that game was, game 2 or game 3, for him to get like top.
I think it was game 3.
Top power play usage.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to hand Ivan Demidov the keys, you're probably not handing Michael Hage the keys. So it's like it's really, we have a clear example 12 months ago of this almost exact scenario, but with a player with much more pedigree and who's much more central to everything the Canadiens are trying to do. And frankly, that caused, all that thing we're talking about where the guys in the room and how are they going to take it, like every single person in the Canadiens room was thrilled that this kid was coming to the team because they live on Instagram and Ivan Demidov was owning Instagram for a long time. So it was very, very welcome. Like no one had any issue. I don't think anyone would have any issue with Michael Hage joining the team, but as we've been talking about, like it's yes, he's a super skilled player.
What you're saying is we gotta get Hage bigger on Instagram.
I think he's just big on Instagram. I'm sure he does things that pop, but very few prospects pop the way Demidov did last year. So, just to say that, watch how Demidov was incorporated and kick that back a notch probably, and you'll probably have an idea of how they're going to do it with Hage. And I know that the difference between last year and this year too is that the Canadiens were quite awful for a good chunk of that season, and it was just this late surge. And so anything that could help them get through that surge, they were going to do. Whereas now you're talking about a team that has really been remarkably consistent, even though they're like inconsistent in their consistency, but they don't go on losing streaks. They don't go on winning streaks. They have stayed the course and basically been roughly in the same place in the standings more or less all year. And that's a different context to say, okay, we're going to bring this kid in when you're already one of the top scoring teams in the league that's super skilled already. And then we're like, oh, we're going to add more skill when the issue is what, as we just finished talking about, is grit. And it's kind of having more of that playoff hardness. I think it's going to be tough. So,
and also for forwards, like a defensive awareness in the neutral zone and the amount of turnovers.
It's not his strength.
So this is no. You're going to want to add. If you were to add a player at this point, it's someone who's going to help you in the departments where you're lacking.
Yeah.
And yeah, you'd be doubling down on your strengths by giving a big role to H right away. That said,
unless you want to double down on just outscoring all your problems, it could. Yeah, it could be. It could.
Yeah.
Could. Honestly, it's not. It wouldn't be crazy.
But I'm
Like,
sure.
you know what? These guys do not understand how to manage a game or manage a puck or manage risk. Let's just double down and let's just add more skill and see what happens.
But I look forward to seeing that player, though. I mean, Michael Hage is an intriguing prospect.
Silky smooth player. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he definitely, even in college, there were elements of his defensive game that he had to work on. That was the case last year as a freshman. I think it remained the case as a sophomore. We'll see. I mean, to be honest, credit, like his coach dealt with him very tough in Russia, but his two-way game was always quite evident in Russia. Playing a pro game, like he played a pro game, whereas Hage has not played a pro game. It's apples and oranges in that sense, but I think the usage of Demidov when he arrived gives you a sense that Hage has an even taller kind of mountain to climb, sort of. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah? Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Finish up?
Well, we'll just say that we'll see how far in the NCAA championship Michigan is going to go. They're facing Ohio State
Canadians might need them to go pretty far to fit them in the cap.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Michigan is playing Ohio State for the Big Ten championship title on Saturday. So we'll see. I mean, lately, Hage ice time. I don't know if it's health related, but it's gone down a bit. When he came back from the World Juniors, he played roughly around 18 minutes a night for 9 to 10 games. It's gone down in the last 7 of his games at 16 minutes. It's not that big of a drop, but you're the third scorer nationally, and it's one of his teammates who's a finalist for the Hobie Baker. It's not him; it's TJ Hughes.
Yeah,
but it's such a it's hard. It's apples and oranges sometimes when you compare guys who are seniors to compared to either freshmen or sophomores. Sometimes each year at college level is so big in terms of the impact that you can have on the team and on the game. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, we're going to go here first. No. Okay, go ahead.
Hello.
Oh. This is very awkward.
Okay, which one am I supposed to? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you talking that one, and this is just for
Gotcha.
For the
Okay.
podcast. Yeah.
So on the subject of Page, actually, one thing I'm thinking about is not necessarily this season, but how he fits into the picture, kind of like in like the medium term, like next season and maybe the season after that.
Yeah, sure.
What's your name? Alex.
Okay. It's a good question because I don't think there's any assurance that he plays center or wing. There's no assurance how he's going to adapt his play without the puck. I don't think there's even an assurance that he would start next season in Montreal. Actually, I know there's not an assurance that he would start next season in Montreal. So it's like there's a lot of runway that's still there, even if he signs in the coming days or weeks. I think there is a fair amount of question marks that remain about his ability to translate a tremendous amount of skill and a tremendous amount of growth at the college level to the pro game. As I mentioned, it's less clear than it was with Demidov. Obviously, Demidov's an elite talent. It's not a fair comparison, but I don't think we should jump the gun and think medium term with Michael Hage, because the short term is not clear, the medium term is not clear, nothing's really clear with him. So and he's not a lock. He's not a lock to be a hit. He has a good chance, very good chance of being a hit. Everything he's done this season in particular has been very encouraging. Even last season when he played on like a depleted Michigan team that was not used to They had some guys declare to go pro very late in the recruiting cycle. They didn't recruit the normal stars that they do. He had no, I don't want to say no talent, but he had less talent than Michigan is used to around him.
Yeah.
And so that was a challenge for him, and I think he grew a lot out of it, but he definitely had some ups and downs, and there was some growing pains there. So I honestly, it's a lot of where he plays this year is going to depend on the contract negotiation. Like, this is a big part of negotiating contracts with college players is, do they get a game in the NHL? Do they not? It's one of the things that you have to negotiate. And so Jeff Gordon and Ken Hughes have a lesson in negotiating with college players and not promising them to have a game in the NHL. So we'll see, but it's tough. It's tough to say. It's tough to answer your question because I really need to see Michael Hage in a professional environment. Like, it's really hard to know what he's going to be. Like, it's. I think people should understand that this is not a finished product, and he's not close to a finished product. Like, I think he's 2, if not 3 years away from being like who Michael Hage will be, one way or the other.
And also, when we're not sure about a young player, if he's going to be a center or a wing, it doesn't suggest that he's unlikely to be a center. As if we've got doubts now, it means that he's unlikely to become a center.
Yeah.
Because you think of Nick Suzuki, when he was acquired from Vegas, there were big doubts that he would be a centerman at the NHL level.
Cody Glass, because he was more of a center.
That's it.
Yes.
So there was, there was a chance that Suzuki would be your second line winger, and it turned out to be a bona fide centerman. So it's just you just need
First
to
line centerman.
First line centerman, exactly.
yeah, and you just need to let time settle things down. Right now, it's certainly not for a lack of playmaking ability, because offensively, the way that he builds his offense, Hage plays like a center. It's more like the defensive responsibilities, the face-offs, and things like that. So there's aspects of the games that maybe you wonder if he's going to be able to improve on that enough that he's going to be able to be, a regular centerman in the NHL. But even if there's doubt now, I think that it's not necessarily a source of concern. There is still a lot of runway for that.
Yeah. Still Jeff. Jeff, right? JP, sorry.
No worries.
It's like calling you Matt Calvin.
That's it. Same thing.
So my question is more about how you guys do your work. I was just wondering if you sometimes let empathy or ethics guide your writing. If you, let's say, something off the record about a player who's not playing really well or something like that, if you have like sensitive information that's maybe unconfirmed, or you saw something, you noticed something, but you like temper your criticism about player, or do you not write about them as much? Like, do you try to steer off clear of them? So that's a good question.
Yeah. Well, when it comes to the off the record stuff, this is why we gather those things, because even though we cannot use certain things like directly, whether it's a quote and information, it gives you, at the very least, it gives you context. And after that, when you portray a situation or tell a story, if you will, you'll take this into account, and it's going to drive you in a direction where you're going to describe the situation, knowing exactly that that background information that you cannot tell outright, at least will steer the overall picture in the right direction. So you have to take this into account. I think that this is where it improves the quality of the information, and you remain true to the person that gives you an information that might not be repeated outright, but at least you're getting closer to the truth that way. And you talk about empathy. I think that when we're talking about human beings, right? We're not talking about, this is not cattle. It's not fantasy sports, and it's not numbers on the stock market. They're human beings. They're professional players, and we have an interaction with them. And I think that as much as people want to have an analysis and a fair and balanced analysis of the team's play and a good picture of where the team is going, you're also telling a story about people. And I think that you want me as a writer, I want to be able to express facts, but also that ideally, if people could read my articles on a piece of paper, that they could almost see the heart pumping out of the piece of paper, and they could feel that there's actually living life out there, because that's what it's about. It's they're hockey players, and they have to be treated as such and talked about as such.
So I have two examples to kind of reflect how this works. So for the first example is Josh Georges. This is a big lesson I learned in my career. So Josh, the whole time he was here, was super helpful with the media, was always there, talked for as long as we wanted, answered all the questions. It was great. And he was a very good defenseman on the ice. Slowly over time, he started becoming a less good defenseman on the ice, but because he was so helpful with us, I had trouble seeing it. And so, and by the time he got traded, it had dawned on me that he had become like an objectively bad defenseman, and I hadn't even noticed. And it's because I was giving him a pass because he answers our questions in the room, and I'm not doing my job at that point, right? Like it's good to build a relationship with someone, but if you're not performing on the ice, ultimately, like I agree with what Marc-Antoine said, but ultimately our job is to evaluate what guys are doing on the ice. And I failed in his case.
Oh, we all did. I think that there was a pro Georges bias back then. Because
we were all blind to him becoming just a guy who spent all his time in the defensive zone all the time. And it was just like, and so that was because of how nice he was. Second story, which I think directly relates to you. So a couple of years ago, during Hockey Fights Cancer Night, Brendan had I Fight for Mom on his thing. And I had met his mother before that. And so then after the game, I kind of saw that, and it was like out in the open for everyone to see, but I don't know if everyone noticed. And I was like, wait a minute, does your mother have cancer? I was like, yeah. It's like, but if you don't mind, can you not say anything? I was like, okay, sure. And then like a lot of time passed. Like, and then I talked to him again, and it sounded really bad and whatever. And she fought and she battled, and she did not, she lasted much longer than everyone thought she would. Rest in peace now. But I mean, that was a case where Brendan asked me not to report it and not to make it public. And then eventually his sister did, and they did it on their own terms. And I was happy to do that, because that's not news that you want to break, you know, like there's no benefit to me, and there's definitely no benefit to him when he literally asked you not to do it. So, but then the trick is, how do I objectively evaluate what he's doing on the ice, which relates back to the Georgia story, when I know that he's going through this very difficult situation off the ice that he's asked me not to report. So now I have to evaluate what he's doing, knowing that he's got a lot on his mind. And so that's tough. Like that's the difficult part, but it
was tough on the whole famami. I mean, his father is,
It was tough. Yeah, it was awful. And so, and you know, like she was going to California for treatment, and there was a lot going on. And so that's a case where I've covered this guy's whole career, and you know, there's yeah, of course there's empathy. Like, I mean, someone else, and honestly, I would have been within my rights. It's not as if like I was snooping around or something. He literally put it on the Hockey Fights Cancer sign and said, "I fight for Mom." Like it was very public. But yeah, just that's the decision you make as a reporter, and as a human being, you make the calculation. Okay, well, I can have this quote unquote scoop, but it's like not a scoop that I want. It does provide context to whatever he's doing on the ice that probably fans deserve to know about, but it's also an extremely personal matter about his mother that not all fans deserve to know about if he doesn't want them to. So yes, there are moments when not only just empathy, but just normal human interaction with someone that you know, and that you know, and that you have a good relationship with, a professional relationship. Like I would never consider any player a friend of mine, but we have good working relationships. And so that was a case where I did not give it a second thought that I would ever report that.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right. Well, on that note, maybe if nobody else has it. Yeah. Okay. There's one here. Okay. Let's take one last one.
So while we're on the scrutiny of your job, how
are we on the scrutiny?
How come you still have one?
So I was looking at you two watching the game tonight and then taking some notes, and I was wondering how different is it when you have to watch a game from a distance on the TV or whatever at home or whatever, and then from the amphitheater or the Sandel or whatever. How different is it for your job of writing on the game, and do you notice things different when you're at the Bell Center or wherever?
On location.
Sure. Yeah. Do you want? Okay, sure. Well, it's vastly different. The first thing is that when you're at the Bell Center, there are things that you see that are not caught on camera. You can choose to focus on something else, and that maybe that you're not going to see on TV. And if you have an idea of a specific angle you want to follow for your story, the more the game goes on, the more you're going to sort of focus on what you've chosen to focus on. And you can much more easily do it on site than if you're watching it on television. Also, the running commentary on TV, the play-by-play, influences what you're going to see, how you can interpret certain things. You could decide to watch the game with no sound, and that's fine. But at the same time, if I watch a game at home, I'll leave the sound on because I'll do some research at the same time, because knowing that at least if there's something that I should not miss, I won't miss it because of the sound. At the Bell Center, you have to have your eyes on the ice at all times, and ultimately it makes for a much more thorough covering experience. And it's your eyes. It's not the lens's eyes, and it's not Pierrot's eyes or voice. It's your own interpretation of how things are done. So ultimately, I think that the quality of your work is heightened when you're on site.
Yeah, not a whole lot to add other than the fact that if you're on site, you actually get to talk to the players after, which is a big reason. It's a big reason to be there. So that's an important part. But for sure, like watching a game I have a lot of trouble, flat out, even just watching a game on television, let alone writing off a game that I watched on television. Like, I am spoiled rotten. I have trouble keeping my focus, because the camera is going all over the place, and I do exactly what Marc-Antoine described, like over various points in the game. If I saw that, just let's say I saw someone have a tough shift, and then they go back to the bench, and then my mind is geared, okay, the next time they're on, I'm going to watch that guy and see how he responds to that tough shift, and I'm just going to watch him all over the ice. And you do that with various players throughout a game, and especially if you've determined, and this is, you want a sausage recipe here, like this is how the sausage gets made. Like, if you have a really good conversation with someone at the morning skate that morning, let's say, and
like Gouli the other day.
So I was 100% focused on Gouli, because Gouli came out, wore it, fully acknowledged he hasn't been playing well, wants to play better, called his team soft, for crying out loud, and so like when you have a compelling conversation like that, you go into a game, you're biased towards wanting that story to be relevant. And at times, I don't think I did this on Tuesday, although I think you could argue I did. But at times, you will really stretch it because you want to make that the story, because you have this background material, and sometimes you have material that other people don't have, and that will influence your decision. But you try not to do it so that it's completely irrelevant and it looks stupid, which, I'm not going to lie, while I was writing my story on Tuesday, I'm like, am I doing this right now? I think I might be. Cole Caulfield scored his 40th goal. Brendan Gallagher plays his 900th game, gets a standing ovation. I read a story about Caden Gouli. I think I might have done that.
Yeah, sometimes the story right in front of you, man. So
yeah, but I cheated. I got them both in. Bravo! But yeah, so that's the other thing about being on site, is you have conversations with players. They steer you in a direction, and frankly, if Gouli had sucked that night, I probably wouldn't have written about it. It would have been like, I would have let him I would have saved that probably for Wednesday. You know, I would have written something about it Wednesday and been like, okay, that was another bad game. What's going on? If he doesn't figure it out, the Canadians are frankly screwed. Turns out he did have a good game, but then tonight followed it up with, it wasn't terrible tonight, but it wasn't as good as he was Tuesday.
No.
So I thought it was relevant in the sense of the point you are in the season. This is the biggest issue on the Canadians. So yes, these 2 milestones happened, and yes, that's great, and they should be celebrated. But in the grand scheme of things, right now, they need this guy to figure it out. And this is very important. So, but you know, if I had written that, if I had written that game off TV and hadn't talked to him about it, hadn't had him own up to it, hadn't given him a chance to talk about it, frankly, like he deserves a chance to respond to like whatever criticism he gets. I probably wouldn't have read that. So that's the difference.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, something happens for the first time in 32 years.
It was in the story. It was in the lead of the story. It was in the lead of the story. The first 400 words were devoted to the milestones.
You got it? It's out of the way? Fine, now let me talk about my topic.
Yes, exactly. It was literally that. It was like, okay, you want to talk about this here? This happened. This happened. Fine. You guys can have that. It's a great quote. I don't know if you read the quote from Cocktail on the album. That made it. So
No,
I had to put.
Yeah,
I had to put. It was like an 80-word quote on God. It was so good. It was really good. So I had two things. Like again, so that happened. The Canadians' camera was gone. Cockfield had been talking for a long time. No cameras were around. He was asked one question about the standing out of Brendan Gallagher. You would think he was all talked out, but because it was Gallagher, literally the first person in the organization he met after getting drafted was Brendan Gallagher in Vancouver, and he like just poured his heart out. And it was like,
hallelujah.
Okay. So Cole Caulfield ensured that Brendan Gallagher's 900 game was included in my story. Yeah,
that's perfect.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Hey, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's it. Well, he didn't come out and talk to us for crying out loud after the game. Like,
No.
he could have said something. You know? What helped?
Thank you so much, everybody,
Excited.
for coming tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you for being part of this beautiful community. Everybody at home who keeps listening or watching us in the Basu Godin Notebook, we really appreciate that. And let this season continue, man.
Thank you to our staff at Hurley's. Trinity. Thank you. Keeping everyone fed and hydrated. Thank you so much. And so we'll be back on Monday.
Yeah.
Regular episode.
We have to, man.
We want to.
Whether you like it or not,
we want to. Congrats to Fem on a dominant trivia victory. Well done.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.